On today's episode, we have some amazing cheesy, buttery buttermilk biscuits, some fails, some wins, and something new I learned along the way. And I get to eat a lot of great biscuits. And then we also have whatever these are. Round 1 of 4 is my traditional method of making biscuits, and we're going to use Havarti cheese here. So we just have flour, salt, baking powder, sugar, and we're going to add garlic powder and chili powder to make this our cheddar biscuit style. We're going to grate some cheese. We're then going to take all of our dry ingredients, load them into the food processor, cut up 6 tablespoons of very cold or frozen butter, add that in, and give a couple of pulses to combine. It should be a bit powdery. Then I'm going to pour in half of the buttermilk, you could see there, and I do this just to incorporate it easily. And we're going to take everything out on parchment, and we're going to add the rest of the buttermilk. Give a little stir. We don't want to overwork this, which is why I do the buttermilk here. We're then going to put everything on the parchment here, and we want to shape it into a rectangle. So you'll see me kind of folding the parchment over, just a way to incorporate everything nice and evenly, again, without overworking. Doing a little scrape to clean up, adding our cheese, and I'm going to do a couple more folds. Again, trying my best not to overwork this. And then once I'm satisfied, we're going to put this in the fridge and let it rest for an hour or two or more. It could be overnight even. We want the butter to be as cold as possible and the cheese to be as cold as possible as well. I make my cuts then. You can do this before or after it goes in the fridge, but this is like a custom fruity special there. And then before we bake, we're going to cover in buttermilk. And I essentially bake these until the tops are the right color that I like. After they're done, which can be 20 to 25 minutes, we brush with melted butter, then make our last cuts and we're ready to enjoy. Quick break in the video. What exactly is a biscuit? So if you watch like Great British Baking Show, biscuit is essentially a cookie overseas. In America, the easiest way to think of a biscuit is as a savory scone. All of the ingredients you can see are in front of me, which makes it super easy to make. Flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, butter, and butter. And you can do this with regular milk, but buttermilk definitely adds a nice texture and taste element. So the recipes that we're going to kind of focus on today are very, very similar. In fact, the base is exactly the same, which is 2 cups or 250 grams of all-purpose flour, a tablespoon or 14 grams of baking powder, a tablespoon or 12 grams of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup 8 ounces of buttermilk, and where we will differ will be with the butter. So my standard recipe uses 6 tablespoons. The Cheddar Bay recipe has melted butter. My standard recipe, and I think the standard traditional Southern style, which is where these biscuits come from, would be to have the butter as cold as possible, even frozen, and then even to chill the biscuits ahead of time. I won't spoil the ending, but I was kind of surprised what happened after I made all of these versions. The other difference will be our baking time. The timing is tricky. I start with 15 minutes and I'll just check every 3 or 5 minutes until they're brown, essentially like this. So that's the test here, is the color on the top of the biscuits, probably 20 to 25 minutes. And then the other piece that is important I should mention is I don't do biscuit rounds. Instead of making the round, I just make a whole thing and I cut them and there's no waste. And that kind of changed the way I thought about it. And it's really a smart idea. Because one, these come out fantastic, but you don't have to worry about the rounds being perfect. You don't have to worry about them rising correctly. And most importantly, there's no waste. All right, I think we've talked enough. Let's get back to some bacon and hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Round 2 is our Cheddar Bay Copycat recipe, so trying to imitate the Red Lobster version as closely as possible. The big difference here is the butter. But just one sec. Pretend like you didn't see that. The butter will be melted and we're using sharp cheddar cheese. Everything else is pretty much identical. So there's 3 kind of techniques that make this different. We're melting the butter. We're adding that butter into the buttermilk directly. And we're not using a food processor here, which that part I love because there's so many less dishes. So we're adding our butter and buttermilk into our dry mix. Again, stirring just to combine. We're then going to add our sharp cheddar cheese. And then you're going to see me kind of fold this over again, similar like I would on the parchment. Again, working it as little as possible. Just want everything to be just incorporated. Totally random thought, but apron versus no apron. Let me know what you think in the comments. What we're doing here, we're just patting out the mixture. Again, we want it to be kind of biscuit height. And watch my confusion here. This is great.
That's it. That was super easy.
So we're going to go and we're going to do our cuts again. We have the oven preheating to 450. We're prepping our melted butter, herbs de Provence, and salt mixture here. Now we'll go on after, and look how beautifully these came out. I love that there was no refrigeration involved, so we just put these in the oven, baked them for like 15 minutes, and voila. You can see the melted cheese in here. It looks amazing. Red Lobster. Round 3. So this was an interesting one. I essentially tried to mimic the Havarti round with cheddar cheese, and the results, well, they were interesting to say the least. So technique is all the same. We're putting everything into the food processor, all the dry. We're cutting up our butter very sloppily, because that was foreshadowing. Quick pulse, we add our butter. We're gonna pulse that. And then the interesting thing I did on this one was I put all of the buttermilk into a bowl and then combined everything in the food processor. I wish I could tell you why, but I don't have the videos. We have our cheese shredded there. So we're gonna start to stir everything together and incorporate all the flour with the wet mixture. And we're gonna add our cheese in, and similarly to what you saw before, I'm gonna essentially kind of fold this together, trying not to overwork the dough. We're then gonna lay it out on parchment, again, similar like we did in the past. We're gonna make a nice rectangle. And what the hell is that? I don't know. It looks so bad, and I can't believe at this point I thought this was gonna come out well. Foreshadowing yet again. So I wanted to actually show you in the oven. You could see the pools of fat in the left corner and some in the bottom right corner as well. Basically, I've never had this happen, so I knew this was not going to come out okay. Surprisingly, the end result wasn't bad. However, these were way too cheesy. The fat kind of ruined them, and they were absolutely overworked, which if you've ever had an overworked biscuit, it's chewy and it's not really fun to eat. So this was definitely a fail, and don't worry, I couldn't give up here, so there's one more to try and finish. Appreciate you hanging in there with me. I promise this is the last round. So the big difference here is I combined what worked for the other recipes. I melted the butter, mixed that in with the buttermilk, and then added the standard dry. So flour, sugar, baking powder, and salt. No cheese in this one because I wanted to compare it to my standard biscuit recipe and kind of see if it worked out as well with the melted butter versus the chilled butter. But you've seen all this before. We're going to speed ahead and get right to the end so you can see the results. Ta-da! So happy. These came out great. They look great. Beautiful day. Final taste and some final thoughts. Immediately, I just know I'm melting the butter every time I make biscuits from now on. This is tender. It tastes good. It's not a cheesy one, but the lack of a food processor definitely is huge. I would make the Cheddar Bay imitations exactly as the recipe was. And again, I'm going to change my recipe. So learn something new by accident. Awesome. All right. Perfect place to end. Hope you have a great day. See you in the comments. See you next week. Take care, everyone.